So in this video, we are going to talk about conditionals. Now, when we want to create big sentences, unexpected scenarios sentences, or maybe say certainty, uncertainty sentences, and then we take help of conditionals. So in that case, we should not make error of grammar or grammatical errors. So that's why we need to understand this small topic. This is basically bifurcated in 3 types. But before that, what does it mean? I want to tell you that. Okay, so now what are conditionals? Conditionals are basically a particular situation, in a sentence. When you are creating a sentence, a particular situation, we tell this, it is described as a main clause. Main clause of the sentence, that is the main thing happening in the sentence, and we are adding a condition to it. We are in addition adding a condition to it. In that case, what do? We take help of conditionals. Okay, happening of another situation. Basically, it is dependent on happening of another situation. Then we use a conditional clause. Conditional clause. Now you might have got to understand two concepts right away: main clause and conditional clause. Main clause is basically the main part of the sentence, which is the main happening in the sentence, and the condition, that is certainty, uncertainty of a particular event or scenario. That's when we add the conditional clause. Okay, you would understand when I would give an example to you. Okay, so whenever you want to add conditional clause, we add in the sentence if, or to make it negative, we use the word unless. Okay, to as a negative sentence, to create it as a negative effect. All right, we also call it negative clause. Unless is also said as negative clause. I would take a basic example for you, and basic example. Yeah, Radha will finish her project well in time if she works late in the evening. Late in the evening. There are many examples given in your notes. I have taken one of them. Like Radha will finish her project. This is the main clause. This is the main happening. The particular situation, we call it a main clause. Now we are adding a particular uncertainty to it. If she works late in the evening, then only she can complete her project. So all the thing has been lined up on the conditional clause. So if she works late, then only she can she can complete her project, she can finish her project. So the conditional clause automatically depends on the main clause. They both are independent on each other. So you need to be careful, add the main clause of the sentence and then you can add the conditional clause. Also you can add the conditional clause first and main clause later. I would take that example as well. I have given many examples in your notes relating to both the scenarios: main clause first, conditional clause later, conditional clause first, main clause later. So if you reach the railway station one hour before the scheduled time, you can call it scheduled, scheduled, both are right pronunciation. Okay, you can or you will get the reservation under Tatkal. So this is the example of the reservation railway station I have taken. I have started the sentence with the condition clause. If this happens, then only the main content can happen, main action can happen, main scenario can happen. So conditional clause followed by main clause, or main clause followed by conditional clause. It can be other way around. There is one key mark I would like to give. In this case, you can use if or when, can be used interchangeably. You can use it, can be used interchangeably. Instead of if, you can also use when. When you reach the railway station 1 hour before the scheduled time, you can, will, or get the reservation under Tatkal. So I can use when instead of if as well. Okay, so they can be used interchangeably. Alright, this can only happen in the basic case, that is type 1 case. In type 2 and type 3, you can't do this scenario. Okay, now I would explain you type 1, type 2 and type 3. Type 1, type 2 and type 3. Now, what are these three cases when we talk about conditionals? The first one is most likely to happen. When the main action will certainly happen, is positively to happen, positively supposed to happen. So in that case, you would take help of type 1. Okay? So there are certain conditions to it. Do not use will in the main clause. You will not use will in the main clause. That's when you can't use will in the main clause. This is the scenario of type 1. This is the basic example we have taken to make you understand what is main clause and conditional clause. Basically, it is bifurcated in 3. So when you are using the certainty, when the action is supposed to or most likely to happen, you would not use will. All right. Now the second condition to it is add if without changing the meaning. Without changing the meaning of sentence. Changing the meaning. You can add if in the sentence, but you need not change the meaning of the sentence. That's what you need to be careful for. This conditionals would be helpful to you when we talk about one of the most amazing term, that is modifiers. So there you need to use it carefully. Modifiers we are going to talk about in the other video. All right. So add if without changing the meaning. And the third scenario, as I said, you can use if or when interchangeably. All right. So these are the three conditions of type 1. I would give you an example over here. If she contests the election, she will or she can get elected. Now I cannot add will, as I rightly said to you, so I have to add can over here. So if she contests the election, she can get elected. This is the example of type 1. Here I can put when as well. When she contests the election, she can get elected. So this is how the type 1 scenario is. Many examples are given. Practice these conditionals. Okay. Now let me talk about the type 2. Type 2 is basically when it is unreal or imaginary. When you are creating imaginary situations, if I would become a billionaire, I would do this. If I become a president of the country, if I become a prime minister of a particular country. So this is unreal or imaginary. Then you need to make sentences in type 2 format, conditionals. Okay. Now I would give example of it directly. She, I have to add if she topped the merit list, she would give us a treat. Give us a treat. We generally use this kind of sentence when we talk to our friends, when we are generally having a conversation with somebody. We use this imaginary type 2 sentences. Then you need to be careful. If she topped the merit list, she would give us a treat. This is imaginary and she doesn't study at all. So this is totally unreal in nature. You're just doing it in a fictitious manner. Fictitious is imaginary. Many examples are similar given in your notes. Let us talk about the type 3. Now, what is type 3? When a particular scenario is fulfilled in the past or may never get fulfilled in future, then we take help of type 3. Partially it is fulfilled or partially it is going to be fulfilled in future and you are aware that it may not happen, then you may take help of type 3. If it is supposed to happen, then you would take help of type 1, which is most likely to happen. When it is not supposed to happen, you would take help of type 3. Partially done, partially not supposed to happen. Totally not supposed to happen, take the help of type 2. Okay, so this is the example of type 1, type 2. Let us talk about type 3. In this, what happens? We talk about had plus third form of verb. This is when we use in the conditional clause in the sentence. Conditional clause. All right. Then we would talk about the main clause. In main clause, we would add would or should have plus third form of the verb. All right. This is for the main clause. Now I would give one example of this to you. If I had met her, if I had met her, I would have invited her to our marriage. Okay, so now what has happened? If I had met her is the conditional clause, had plus third form of the verb. So that is the conditional clause. I would have invited her to our marriage. So that is the main clause I have added in the end. So this is the type 3 scenario when partially things have happened or may have happened. So it is not happening right now. So type 3. Type 2, it is totally unreal. So it is type 2. When it is supposed to happen or may happen, then you take help of type 1. Here we create long sentences. So when we create long sentences, we need to take help of conditionals. So this is how we conclude the topic conditionals. Now you need to practice it more, observe the sentences, example sentences in different types in the basic scenario so that you get a good grip on it and you don't occur any particular wrong mistake or maybe say wrong conditional you don't put at wrong place. So be careful in type 2 and type 3. You need not add when. Not add when we instead of if. Instead, it is given in your notes as well. So be careful. In both the cases, type 2 and type 3, you need to be careful that you need not add when instead of if. Only in case of type 1, you can add when. In type 2 and type 3, you cannot add. So be careful. Don't occur any mistake because there are chances that people commit mistake and in these places. So please be careful, practice more, solve the worksheet, and I would see you in the other video. Thank you.